Everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. This is called Taming the Beast, Streamlining SWPPP, ESA, and Remediation Workflows. My name is Jake Freewald. I'm Head of Product Marketing here at Fulcrum, and it's a pretty interesting set of things we'll walk through today. Let's talk about what our goal is, which is to understand how to tame that beast of multiple complex environmental processes. And the way that we're going to walk through that, figure out what to do, how to approach it, that sort of thing, is to follow the following agenda. First, we've got to look at why the processes are such a beast in the first place. Then we've got to find out what blockers there are to us taming them. Like, if there's such a problem, then why haven't we already solved those problems? To understand that solution, to figure out what we should be doing, we'll take a look at what other business units do. In other words, not field organizations, but the finance department and so on. What do they do in order to control their processes? I'll take a break then to make it go from somewhat abstract to being very concrete by showing you a full demo of an SWPPP application. And also I'll dovetail that into an ESA phase 1 inspection. Finally, there's going to be a fair amount that we talk about that's going to lead us to what we think the future should look like. And I'd like to give you a video. It's about 2 minutes long of what that future looks like. It's pretty rare that I show a video as part of a webinar, but I think hopefully you'll agree that this is worth it when I show it. And then we'll just do a quick recap and do the Q&A. So that's the plan for the next 40 to 60 minutes. With all that in mind, let's get started. And I'd like to do that by talking about what makes a beast a beast. And I don't mean what makes SWPPP a beast. I mean what makes a beast a beast. A wolf, for example, is wild and is not inclined to be helpful. That's one of the reasons that we, fear them, or that we have to treat them differently than we would. Dogs, a working dog in particular, like the corgi that you see here, is actually literally bred to be helpful. So that tells us something, right? It's bred to be helpful. There's actually a process involved in making a corgi. And so I think that can show us that when we're thinking about what makes something a beast, it's when nature takes its course. This is when processes happen to you as opposed to you defining and directing those processes. And the helpful working dog that you get is what you get when you define and direct those processes and make that dog into the creature that you want it to be. So we have a beast when we don't have control, when we don't have processes that we've defined, and we have a good working dog when we do. And of course, some of you are laughing right now, like, that's not the corgi that I know. This is probably the corgi you know. I get it, it's fine. But anyway, they may depend on us more than we depend on them these days, but I think the principle is still correct. So when we think about what beast we're facing with respect to environmental workflows, let's make this concrete. What kind of thing causes us to say this is too wild and not controlled enough? Picture yourself Friday at 4 p.m., you've got an inspector on site, and a client calls. The client needs some information, specifically a number of the SWPPP reports that they're supposed to, that you're supposed to have available. Looking at what we got to worry about, probably give me the last 6 months worth, and they want it basically right now. What do you do in that situation? One of the things that far too many people do, and our clients have done that before they came to us, this is the reason they came to us, is to control this aspect of things. First, they have paper files. I've got the reports, and they're printed and in a file folder. Clearly, getting your last 6 months is going to be a complex job of trying to assemble the right information, make sure you didn't miss anything, make all the right photocopies, assemble that into a packet, et cetera, et cetera. Another possibility is that you're working with spreadsheets and with Word documents. Yes, I've got those reports, but they're in a series of Word documents. I'll need to pull all of those out and assemble them and bring them and put them into a package for you. Doing that is clearly suboptimal. And the fact that it's suboptimal is highlighted by the reasons that people come to say, I need to fix this problem. And I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I think it's important to just recognize how important it is, because that makes us wonder why we haven't fixed it. Like, there is direct financial risk related to your violations and fines that you're going to be receiving. The fact that projects could literally be shut down, that kind of direct financial risk seems to be a big enough problem that people would want to change from paper, spreadsheets, Word documents to something better. The operational chaos that you get from people doing double entry. They're writing all the stuff down on a clipboard, they bring it home, they type it into a spreadsheet, the spreadsheet gets uploaded somewhere. That kind of effort at data collection time and the follow-on effort that takes place when they're doing error checking after the process has started, or when they're doing an audit later on, and they're 6 months, a year, 3 years down the line, and they've got this massive effort to do it. That seems like that would make it worthwhile to change. And then finally, the strategic and reputational risk that you run if you don't have a very clear line of defensibility into the data that you've collected. Yes, I got all this data. Well, where is it? Well, I got to go back into a file cabinet to get it. Not being able to instantly show the way that you got the data, the way that you've tracked the data from the point it was collected all the way through today, that seems to be a challenge that makes it worth doing better than this. And also, if you aren't able to be responsive enough, then the loss of your business to competitors could also be a reason that's powerful enough to warrant making a change and really improving the way we do things. So why haven't we? How do we get where we are? And why are we not actually able to move off of this place where we are? And I think it comes back to that, what does it mean to make a beast? We're allowing nature to take its course in a couple of different ways. One of them is the devil we know. We know that what we get with paper may be lousy, but at least we know it, right? I'm not taking the risk of moving off of this onto something else where I'm uncertain about what the actual results are going to be like. The other thing that we see, and we see this very often with clients who come to us and they say, okay, well, I've started a digital transformation. We say, what do you mean by that? And they say, well, we've moved everything off of paper onto Google Forms. Why did you move to Google Forms? What was the thought process there? Well, I know I can get exactly what I had on paper. That's nice, but that means that all you have is basically the same thing you had on paper. All you've got is a whole bunch of files in some kind of directory structure as opposed to a bunch of files in a cabinet. So getting the devil that you know digitized isn't enough to change what you do fundamentally. It isn't enough to change the issues that you've got with collecting the information, having that information in an auditable form, and being able to assemble that information quickly for your clients. So it sounds good. I think that's why that's why people go this direction. It sounds good, but you don't actually move the needle with it. And then finally, just inertia. We've all been in a situation, I know I have, I'm sure most of you have, where people say, oh, you know what, if we did it this new way, it would work really well. And then you try that new way, and it turns out that 6 months later, you're not that much better off than you were before, or the promised results weren't really, the results that you got. And you end up feeling like you're chasing fads. If you're chasing a fad, it's a waste of your time. And if it's a waste of your time, then you're not doing the work you need to do. You may as well stop wasting your time and actually just do the work. And if it's on paper or if it's in spreadsheets or whatever, close enough, right? So that inertia is a major issue as well. I think these three things give us some ideas about what we should do to tame the beast, right? If nature is taking its course gives us this, then the things that we need to do to actually get to a better place include, first, reducing that uncertainty. So you know what you get. You can see the process to get from inefficient and risky paper to something that's more digitized, and by doing that, you reduce that uncertainty. The digitization has to matter. I actually talk to people about this sometimes when they're asking what they should do first. And the instinct, I think, for a lot of people is to do something small, to keep it really tight and focused. And that sounds great because it sounds like you're not risking very much. But the bigger risk is that you won't do enough to get anyone's attention. So I'm not telling you that you should bet the farm on a massive project that's going to change everything all at once. But you do have to bite off enough of a task to say, you know what, if I can do this, if I can digitize this process and get a certain amount of improved productivity, a certain amount of better data, a certain amount of better customer satisfaction because the reports come in quicker, whatever it is your goals are, make that goal matter. And when that goal matters, bite off enough to actually cause the digitization that you do to get people to say, yeah, holy smokes, that was really worth doing. So that digitization has to matter. That's a principle for taming the beast, because if you don't do that, nobody's going to care that you tamed this beast. It won't be the wolf that you tame. It'll be, I don't know, a chipmunk, and it just won't matter. And then finally, and I need to be careful with this, we need less IT and more control. Let me not be construed as saying that you don't need IT. You absolutely need IT. IT is there to provide structure, to provide security, to make sure that you're not going outside the guardrails. There's a ton of reasons that you need IT. What you don't need, what we don't need, is the requirement to go through IT for every single thing that you do. Because if you do that, IT has a ton of things that they need to do to react, and they don't have the staff, they don't have the people, they don't have even the expertise in some cases to manage your field processes. So it's not that you don't need IT, it's that you need less IT managing the stuff that you should be managing. You should be controlling the things that you need to do. And I'm going to add that IT is also in quotes because I include the GIS team in this. The GIS team should be working fist and glove with the field teams. And as a good partner, the GIS team wants to make sure that you've got the right GIS information, geospatial information, and they want to get the right geospatial information from the field. But again, what we don't need is for the GIS team to have to do everything for the field team. The field team needs to be able to control its own stuff. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like in the near future. But the bottom line is the field can't feel like they're going through a fad. The field needs to feel like they are doing things right now, and they have control over things right now that are going to make their lives better. So that's what we need to do in order to help tame that beast. So if that's what we need, how have people done it before? And again, I'm not thinking about other companies or other. I'm looking at other departments within our own organization. And in every organization, there are multiple business functions that have control over their own processes. You've got finance and manufacturing and customer service and so on. Each of those business functions has a primary platform for themselves, right? It might be SAP, it might be the asset management team has, Maximo or something like that. They all have some primary platform, and they have that platform in order to do three major things. The first one is to standardize their processes and data, because the enterprise asset management team will tell you, and they're right, that they can't possibly manage the assets in the way that they need to without being able to say, here's the process we go through in order to manage these assets, and here's the data that is my source of the truth for what the asset situation is out there in the field, in the office, anywhere I've got an asset to manage. Right? So they standardize their processes and their data so that they can manage their own environment. They also have the ability in that platform to customize for specific reasons. Excuse me. Your finance department needs to customize the way it does billing based on the state. Are they charging sales tax here and not there? Are there different regulations or requirements for each of those states? In the field, you also have obviously different kinds of requirements for each state, and that's going to come back to us too. So customizing based on the customer you're dealing with, based on the state you're dealing with, based on whatever kind of parameters they have to deal with, that platform helps them customize those processes that they've standardized on to suit the specific workflows for those specific different situations. And then finally, they use those platforms as a source of a point of integration. And that makes sense, right? If they're managing their processes in the platform and all of the data is standardized within their platform, then anything that they get from anyone else has to go into that platform. So we want to integrate with them. We want to filter out the data. We want to make sure it's structured the way that we want to structure it. And then we'll bring it into our platform to our version of the truth. That may mean, by the way, that you're translating from one part of the organization's version of the truth to yours. And that's totally fine. The what is a customer problem is real. And the answer for the EAM team is a customer is what the EAM team says the customer is, even if that's different from what other people say the customer is. So integrating the processes and data that they own with the processes and data that other people own, other parts of the business own, is another core function of that primary platform that they have. So this is what a platform does for every other business unit. It standardizes processes and data, customizes, and integrates with other parts of the organization. if you think about what this does, then the three things that we just talked about are managed through that platform. The uncertainty that you have is reduced because you've got the standardization and customization that you need within your own platform. It increases the ability to apply technology to solve problems because you're applying that technology in one place, one single spot where you have control over your processes and data. And while it doesn't eliminate the need for IT in general, it does focus needed IT support in that one place. And it ensures that anything that IT isn't needed for, things that are more business oriented, things that the business people know better than the IT people do, that kind of thing might have specialized tooling or capabilities so that the business people can execute that instead of waiting for the IT people to help them out. So it focuses that IT support and reduces IT support for things that IT really shouldn't be in charge of anyway. So this is not new to anybody else in the enterprise, but it's somewhat new to the field. And without a platform, the field's not going to be able to evolve because they won't have that place to standardize, customize, and integrate their processes and data. So let's take a look at how to make that a little bit more concrete for us here. Now, a typical environment has a variety of different kinds of platforms in it, including enterprise asset management, which I've already mentioned, GIS, which I have not, which I talked about very briefly as kind of an IT-ish kind of thing, but it is a platform of its own, that geospatial database and all of the functions and capability around it. Sometimes there's special safety and quality platforms, and so on. Any field process, a multi-step process that involves an inspection, let's say, or an SWPPP or whatever it is going to involve multiple interactions with each of these kinds of systems. It will pull down information from the GIS and from the AIM to say, here are the assets I'm looking at, or the things that I'm looking at, or the things that I'm using to look at other stuff. And this is the location that those things are in, right? So it's going to be pulling those things down. Now you'll note that this diagram has multiple mobile apps for each of these different applications. And that's because all of them do have some kind of app. It's really bolted on to the platform to say, here's the extension of what we do for the field. The problem is it's not really thought of from the perspective of what the field needs. It's really thought of from the perspective of, here's what I, as an enterprise asset manager, need from the field. It's not there to help the field per se. It's there to help the field help the platform owner. So as a result, what you'll find is that they're very frequently not very good, flexible, usable tools for the field. And they know this. Like, we've talked to people, in fact, who own some of these mobile extensions to their platforms. And they will tell you, yeah, everybody knows that the app is not really great. The mobile app is not really what we want it to be. And we will put it in our roadmap. And here you go. Priority number 4, it's going to be fix the mobile app to make it better for the field. And people agree, yes, it should be fixed. But then they say, but wait a minute, look at priorities number 5, 6, and 7. Those are really more important than the 4th one, because those are, for me, those are things that I need in order to do a EAM correctly. Well, if that's the case, then the mobile app gets deprioritized again, and it consistently gets put to the bottom of the heap. So these mobile apps then force multiple data entry. They force training on multiple apps for the field team to make sure that the field team can do what it needs to do. And it causes a kind of fragmentation in that field process. And frequently, because you don't have the field ability, the ability in the field to make modifications across these different platforms, people in the field will revert to paper. They'll revert to paper, they'll take down their information on a clipboard, they'll go back to the office, they'll type stuff into a spreadsheet, and somebody has super glued a process together where that spreadsheet will then push the right information to the ERP and push the right information to the EAM and push the right information to the GIS. It's just the way these things go. And that's one of the reasons why we have a client who, years ago, before starting Fulcrum, they had a spreadsheet-based process, and the latitude and longitude were flipped on a particular report. They do insurance reporting, by the way, so there's nothing like, yeah. So the latitude and longitude got flipped. So when they did this report, it went to the insurance company, and the insurance company saw that the building they were looking at was out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. If that happens, the insurance company that you're sending it to immediately calls into question everything else that you've done. The data collection process wasn't good here. Why would I expect it to be anywhere better anywhere else? Okay, we're now in step 1. I'm not going to go through steps 2 through 5, but it's all the same thing, right? We're coping with the fact that we have these fragmented systems that are incapable of containing any one step on its own. And as a result, the field is stuck with a hugely fragmented field process. What we should be doing is following the same lead that the EAM team, the GAS team, the safety team, and so on have done before us. And that is have a platform. And that platform enables us to say, here's what the 5 steps are. Here are the things that I need to do. Other people can tell me what to do. The GIS team can say, I need the following information. Totally fine. The EAM team can say, I need the following information. Totally fine. But I control the steps about how I'm going to get that information. And because I control those steps, I can do things on my own. I can add into a step a safety walkabout with a video so that supervisors back at the office can see that, see that the environment that I'm in is safe. Imagine trying to get that done in the EAM tool or in the GIS tool. It's not going to happen ever. So having a field platform where you control the process, you control how you get the data, you control what data you get from other platforms, because you do need that information from the EAM team, you do need that information from the GIS and so on, and how you push that information back to them, because they are clients of yours and you do need to have that data be highly valuable by being shared by more people. You have control over all of that in that single field platform. That makes a tremendous difference to taming that beast of your environmental workflows. So I think what I'd like to do now is pause from, again, the abstractions, right? We've taken it from very abstract to a little bit more concrete with that last diagram. Let's look at what this actually looks like. And to do that, I'm going to try, and really hope that it works properly, to share my phone and see what it might look like for someone who's out in the field to be doing, and I'll start with an SWPPP. All right, look at that. And Kurt in the background will tell me if this is not working or if there's an issue with sharing. All right, I'm in Fulcrum right now, and you can see of the 4 top items on my screen, there's the first 2 are the ones we'll be mostly working on. The 4th one I'm going to be talking about a little bit, but it'll come into play later. So I'm going to click on the SWPPP inspection. And you'll see that there's some records already in place. I could look at it on a map to see what I'm not going to do that. It's okay. I'm just going to create a new record. I do that by clicking in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, the plus that says record. And the first thing you see is that I can select the site. And there's a select button. What I'm not doing is simply typing in information. If I select this information, and then I'm going to choose Huntington Commons because I'm the point of contact there. And you can see my NPDES permit comes up. This is information that I don't have to fill in, I just select. And I'll show you how that works in a couple of minutes. But the point is that I am using other information that's already in the platform to inform what I'm doing as part of my inspection. My inspector name today is Hans Gruber. The date is the 23rd. The inspection type I can choose. And what I'd like us to do is look at what happens when I choose a different inspection type. Let's suppose that this was sent out to me. This might even be pre-populated. That's the way this happens a lot, is that you'll get assigned a record and it's already assigned a weekly routine. Okay, well, if you look at that weekly routine, you can see that the weather and site conditions are underneath it. If though this was assigned to me because it's a post-rain event, suddenly you see a whole new set of things open up. This post-rain inspection information is new. You can see underneath that the weather and related site conditions that we had before. So I need to pick the rain event start date, end date. I'm not going to do all that stuff. The rainfall amount I can type in directly. And then this last question, was the inspection within 24 hours? If I say yes, nothing changes. If I say no, then you can have a lot of things happen. I just had a little message come up saying that this critical issue was noted. Now, this is an example of what we call conditional visibility, right? This stuff was not here until we chose the post-rain event. So if I click on post-rain event, the inspection type, and I get rid of that and say, no, this really is a routine weekly event, then all that stuff goes away. It's conditional based on what my actual process is in the field. I'll show you conditional requirements here in a minute too. The next thing I'd like you to notice is the weather and site-related conditions. This is actually what the weather looks like today in Huntington Station, 61 degrees and sunny, and the wind is gusting to 15 miles an hour. I'm going to show you how this came in, but the bottom line is what I'm trying to avoid is having someone who is focused on an environmental requirement. I want to have that person avoid typing stuff in, saying it's warm enough and it's sunny where I'm standing, and instead they get actual information from a nearby weather station or from sensors or whatever else there may be. I'll show you what it took to do that. This is one of the very few places where I will show you code. Everything else that I'm going to show you here today is all done just drag, drop, point, click kind of stuff. Because again, I want the field to be able to handle the field's own processes. Now the question, is it rain in the last 24 hours? If the answer is no, nothing changes. If the answer is yes, then how much rainfall was there in the last 24 hours? It was that much. What are my ground conditions like? They're damp, right? Site conditions. Do I have active discharge? Again, the answer is no, then nothing changes. If there is, then I want to insert something into the process that has people tell us what the discharge looks like. So now I can come and I can add in, well, the discharge location description is the northeast corner, and the discharge appearance, I can make that a pick list. Cloudy, I can, by the way, say other and add a new value. I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to just make it, nope, I'm going to make it cloudy. And then I can take pictures. I'm not going to do that because you don't need a picture on my desk. By the way, each one of these individual elements can be located independently. So I've got here the capability, because we're talking about water and sometimes water covers an area. I've got the ability to capture a polygon. But for this particular type of discharge issue, it may be the discharge where a pipe is flowing out into something. So that might be a point geometry. So there's a lot of different capability within Fulcrum to capture the geospatial characteristics of the discharge that I'm dealing with, or whatever characteristics you might be dealing with. Note that that particular geometry is associated with the northeast corner and not with the record as a whole. The record as a whole contains information, it contains whatever, it might contain the entire area that you're looking at, or whatever, or it may contain no geometry because the geometries are expected to be contained in the lower items. That's up to you as the field staff to understand how you should organize your information. Spills and leaks, I could do the same thing and put in information I'm not going to. Erosion, I could do the same thing and put in what I wanted to. The next thing I want to look at is the best management practices and say, am I capturing things like, am I using erosion control? Am I using silt fences, right? Or I don't have that one. Erosion control blankets. Again, I can locate this specifically however I want to myself. And I can add an additional one. And you'll notice this is a hierarchy, right? This is a best management practice. I can say I've got runoff and velocity control. I've got a temporary swale. So there's a hierarchy. I choose one, and that takes me down a path. My path only happens to go down 2 levels, but you could have it go deeper if you wanted to do that. And now I've got multiple BMPs in one record that shows me which ones I am engaged in at that site. And then I can add in site condition comments. I'm not going to do that. I can choose, is it a pass or is it a fail? I'm going to say pass. Remember, I'm playing Hans Gruber today, and my signature can be signed just like you do with the supermarket. Everybody knows how to do that. Last thing I'll note is I did put a date and a time in here because people ask me when I don't include a date and a time in my demos. But it's really not necessary because everything we're doing here is being captured within Fulcrum with that kind of metadata in place. So Fulcrum knows that what the day is and what the time is, and it will timestamp everything, not only what we do here now, but also any changes that are made down the line. It'll have the before copy and the after copy. It will tell you when the after copy was made, when the changes were made. It can even tell you where the person was standing when they made that change if you want to. So if you got people out there in the field and you see, oh, there was a change, but that change was made after they left the site, that's important somehow. You can actually see that in your audit trail. Finally, like I said, there is a locate of the for the entire record if that's necessary, point, line, polygon, whatever. You can make it be only one item, so it's only a point. You can make it so it's only polygons, whatever you like to do. That is an SWPPP. And if I weren't talking so much, it would have been a lot faster than it actually took us to do. And you can see it was actually a really straightforward process to do that. I'm going to save that record and take a look at a couple other things that are related to what I just did, but that are not the same thing as what I just did. So, for example, I want to show you that site information app. It's the workflow. It's the 4th one down. my background is in enterprise integration and business intelligence and databases. I did a lot of that work for a couple of decades before joining Fulcrum. And one of the things that you will always get from people like me, like your IT staff, like whatever, is where's the database located? What, is it normalized? What kind of form is it in? How can I use it? The field workers that we tend to work with don't generally have that attitude. They don't generally think to themselves, where's my database? They'd much rather not start by thinking rows and columns and instead start by thinking process. But there is a need for us to have some data structure within Fulcrum if it's going to be a field platform. And this is one of the ways that we do that. So the site information, normally I wouldn't even show this on the screen. This would not be visible to the field worker, but it would be there hiding in the background, doing work for us. It's got these 4 records because I didn't want to have a huge amount of site information, and it's just preloaded information. The Wantagh Hotel and Spa with Harrison Ford as the contact information, Mayfair Farms in West Orange, New Jersey, Huntington Commons, that's me, that's my house, and then the Alveda apartments. This is all pre-populated information. It can come from some other place. It can come from GIS or your EAM or wherever. It can come from any other location if you want it to. But the bottom line is this is the copy of the information that the field workers will be using. And that's really important because it needs to reside on the phone or on the device, because you won't necessarily have that mobile connection back to the EAM or the GIS. So it's residing on the device, and it's residing in a way that now I can use it in other places. Like which other places? Well, if I go back to that SWPPP and start my new record, when I said select a site, that's what I was actually doing. I was actually looking at those items in that separate app. I'm going to cancel out and show that one of the benefits of that is that when I'm doing my phase 1 ESA, I can do the same thing. Here I'm going to go click that plus in the bottom right again. Here's my record, and I'm going to select a site. Looks suspiciously familiar, right? I'm going to choose Huntington Commons again. Notice that it's a little different. I didn't need the same information in this app as I needed in the other one. I only needed the primary contact and the address. In the other one, I needed the primary contact and the permit number. So I might get different information based on what the individual app needs. But that source of truth still resides in Fulcrum. And because it resides there, I am able to use it in other applications. Now, I'm going to just walk through a couple of things here. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I'm just going to show you that what I've done previously, I can do now in different ways, or to use it in different ways to make that field worker's experience as good and productive as possible, and to make sure that the data you get back from that field worker is also as good as possible. Now, in an ESA, my understanding, I'm no ESA expert. I know Fulcrum. I'm a Fulcrum expert, not an ESA expert. You may want to have, you will probably already have historical records and regulatory database records and things like that that might be valuable to people in the field, in which case you might want to see what those are. I don't have any populated here. I don't even know what that would necessarily look like. But if you do have those pieces of information, they can be put into Fulcrum. And when I said, yes, I want to see them, it opens that up. There's that conditional visibility again. And when I say no, they go away. Same thing with the regulatory databases. Notice that the exterior site reconnaissance, for whatever reason, I decided that the weather information could be in one field and more compact. And maybe I'm going to not do any sorting or filtering or anything on those. So I just wanted to say what it looked like. And when I do that, I made a string out of it. I'll show you that. It's really simple to do. And then did I gain the site access? If I say yes, nothing changes. If I say no, something does appear, the reason for no access and the photos from the site of the site from the street. Let me do that again. Is the site access gained? Yes. The photos of site from street is still there. Notice that there is no red asterisk in the upper right corner of that photo. If I say no, then the reason for no access appears, and there's that red asterisk saying that it's mandatory. And there are now photos of the site from the street, and I can take pictures as well, and that's also mandatory. I could type in my reason for access, or there could be a number of them. Maybe there's a vicious dog in the enclosure here, since we're talking about beasts, right? And I could take photos. I'm not going to take a photo of my laptop, but that is now you've now made it mandatory to get photos of the site from the street if you don't have access, whereas it was optional before. Current site operations could be whatever they are. Structures on the site could be, a pick list of a variety of things, and so on. Again, do I have evidence of staining? If the answer is no, nothing. If the answer is yes, add more stuff, and so on and so forth through all of those. Gustav goes down through his thing, signs off, And by the way, again, he can locate where he is either for the record as a whole or for any of these issues around stressed vegetation or where the where the tanks might be or where the staining might be. All right, and if I didn't mess it up, then I should be able to save that. All right, so I've done the phase 1 ESA. What I'd like to do now, hopefully that's a fairly straightforward view of what it takes to be in the field and have a manageable process that shows me only what I need to know at the time I need to know it, pre-populate stuff either through accessing sensors or through getting information, downloading it from another application or whatever it may be, gives me the information I need and makes it possible for me to capture everything I need to capture as well as possible. What I'd like to do is stop sharing my phone and show you what this looks like within the within Fulcrum itself. Because within Fulcrum, everything I did, with the exception of that little weather trick, everything I did is just by putting stuff on a screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the SWPPP inspection, and I'm going to click over here on Edit App. This is what we call the app builder. I don't love the term app builder because there's a lot more to it than an app. It's really a complete workflow embedded into one encapsulated environment. And you can see the site information at the beginning relates to the site information I showed you before. See how it says it has two little things linked here? That's because it's a record link. If you look down here in the lower left, it's a record link. So that record link, when I say select the site, I say the linked app is site information. Sorry, let me go back. The linked app is the site information. I'm allowing it to select existing records. I could allow it to create new records, but I don't want to do that in this case because the sites are the sites are the sites. I'm not going to let anybody change those or create new ones. And then I can say I want to auto-populate certain fields. So notice up here, primary contact name and NPDES permit. I can go auto-populate those fields just by saying, yeah, the primary contact name in the location information, the site information is going to fill out the primary contact name in my form. NPDES permit is going to fill in the NPDES permit in my form. It's that simple. And I don't have to select all of them, right? There's all these other things that I could put, like the permit issue date. If I don't need them, they don't have to clutter up the screen of that field user. So I hit select. I'm going to get those two pieces of information that I need. The inspector details, who am I, and well, what's the date, and what's the inspection type, and so on. Notice that I said the post-rain inspection information. Remember the inspection type? And I included these choices here directly in the app, but you can have them as a predefined choice list if you want to, so that you're using the same choices over and over and over again. But here I just put them into the app itself. Remember that when I said post-rain event, it showed a whole other group of required fields like the start date and the end date of start date and time and end date and time of the rain events. I did that by taking this entire section and applying a visibility rule. So if the inspection type is equal to post-rain event, show this. If not, don't. So that's all it took to make this appear when this is of the right type. The weather and site-related conditions here, this is where I work that little bit of magic by using what we call a data event to pre-populate these fields. I'm going to show you this now. It's the only code I'll show you, I promise. But I just want to make it clear how simple it is. And maybe I should give you a little philosophy behind this first. The design decisions that we make are always in favor of letting the field do more without getting other people, technical resources, IT staff, even our own professional services, without getting any of them involved, right? That's what we want, is for you to be able to do as much as humanly possible. But we know that in the environments we work in, there are always situations where there's really sophisticated validation needed, or there's some kind of integration that we weren't expecting, or you want to be able to populate this field from some kind of a sensor, something that we are not able to do just like in a drag and drop environment. And therefore, we put in a whole bunch of exits into the code, or pardon me, into the platform. I'm using the term exits. Maybe not everyone knows what that means. It means that when something happens, when you display a new record screen, before doing anything else, Fulcrum says, what else should I be doing here? And it allows you, the developer, or the Fulcrum administrator, to say, I'm going to do something else special before I finish the execution of this process. And that's what these data events are. These are the exits that let you take control of every single little aspect of what happens within Fulcrum. And all I do with this application is when the change geometry event fires, I fire off a call to weatherapi.com. This is my actual API key. Don't steal it. It's a free account anyway. Go get your own. But weatherapi.com lets me say, okay, if I've got a latitude and a longitude, which is coming from my GPS, format it correctly into the URL and send it off. I literally stole this from documentation that's on Fulcrum. I'm not a programmer by trade. I'm a marketing guy, but I was able to just copy and paste stuff. And then when you copy and paste stuff, you can see, okay, well, set value. Temperature is actually a data field that I have in this workflow that I'm building. Visibility is wind, as wind gusts are. And I just add in the MPH or something like that to make it pretty or what have you. That's it. That's all I did. That's what it takes to call a sensor or to call a web service or call whatever else it is that you need to do. We have people done tons of different kinds of integrations with this. And I won't belabor it because I'm going to get to the end here. So I won't belabor it. But there's a ton of things you can do with data events. It's incredibly flexible and something well worth considering if there's some kind of requirement you got that you're like, that doesn't work in a drag and drop environment. We've got things where you may only choose one option. We've got things where you could choose more than one option. The site conditions, again, you saw where I said, okay, well, is there active discharge? And when I pressed yes, it showed me what the discharge requirements were. That's just this, again, this discharge section with a visibility rule on it and so on. And then down here at the bottom, I've got things where the certification, this is always required, right? So when I say, is it passed? Yes, it's passed. I need to make it a required field. So it's always required. It's not conditional. I could make it conditional by having requirement rules. I'm not going to do that. So all of these then are required for everything. Date and time, I said that I don't even let people change those, and it's just there to make people know that I'm capturing the date and time. I'm defaulting to today's date. It's a required field, and it's read-only, so they can't mess with me by changing it. Same thing with the time. So that, in a nutshell, is what it looks like for the field to build out something as sophisticated as what I've shown you. And I'm going to show one more thing because I think it's critically important. I mentioned before that you could add a video to something, and it's easy just to get a walkabout of what the environment looks like. This is what it takes to add a video, right? So now, if we want to make sure there's a safety check in there, I can literally have that now. I hit save on this app, and I hit sync on my phone, and that video is going to be part of everybody's workflow from that moment on. Which means that instead of asking the GIS people to add it in, which they probably won't get to, or asking the EAM people to add it in, which they probably won't get to, or asking IT to help build it with that custom app, which they'll get to, but it's going to take a really, really long time. I just did it in literally a matter of a couple of seconds. All right, I've talked quite a bit. I'm going to go over to the site information just to show you what that looks like. Very simple because it's really just a data structure. Data structure. It just has the various field types. Notice that the address is its own particular kind of data type. It's got a lot of, street, county, et cetera, built into it. So literally, I'm just throwing the information that I want in here. It can be hierarchical if we want it to be. Doesn't have to be. So there's the site information to capture that information correctly. And then if you want to just take a quick look at the ESA, this is what that application looks like. And there was the one thing I noted down here, reason for no access and photos of the site from the street. I want to show you conditional requirement. There it is. It's visible all the time. There are no visibility rules, but it's required if the site access is gained is equal to no. So there you go, conditional requirement, piece of cake, no problem whatsoever. And yeah, that's all I'll do for that. What I'd like to do now is, now that you've seen what it looks like, there's actually one last thing I'll show you. No, I know, it's like really, but yeah. Because I wanted to show you how easy it is to modify code here too. The data events, I just took that same latitude, longitude stuff, and I just said weather, temperature, Fahrenheit, wind, at whatever. So I just pushed it together into one string to show it on the screen in a different way than I had it in the previous app. All of these things can be fully independent. I could show you reporting. There's a number of other things that I could show you that fall out of this. but I'm going to move off of that now and return back to the presentation side of the house because we're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. And the way that I will wrap up is by, first of all, talking about what we've just seen and trying to reinforce the things that the platform makes possible that may not have been clear when we first walked into it, or even while we were walking through it. First, I was able to standardize the information not only within the one workflow of the SWPPP, but standardize information across multiple workflows that SWPPP and the ESA. There's even stuff that I didn't show you that also is standardized in there that across multiple workflows, but whatever, we don't have time for it. Standardizing that information across multiple workflows, standardizing and customizing those field processes in one place. I didn't have to go to a different location to get the EAM information and work that into my process. I was able to get the EAM information as a separate process, have a little data store side loaded into Fulcrum to work with, and I could use that inside my single app. So I could standardize it, I could customize it, and it's all in one place. That one place is really important. I'll get to that in a second. And then you also saw integration, in this case with Field Tech. You saw me reaching out to integrate with a weather station, but it could also integrate with office systems. If you have a connection and you want to say, okay, well, I'm seeing that this particular asset has this serial number, get me information about that serial number, you could call out to Maximo and do that. We see that fairly often. Or you could say, what's the work order with Maximo that's going to help me with my current process? You can have that direct integration with Maximo or with other platforms. Certainly with Esri ArcGIS, either online or enterprise. That kind of integration is something that we have to do on a regular basis. So that integration, the three things that we're doing that the platform makes possible is the standardization, customization, and integration of all our processes and data. The other thing that you saw is the fact that some marketing schmo who is not a programmer was able to create a highly functional, well-directed, highly organized process. Means that your IT team doesn't have to build that for you, and your GIS team doesn't have to put in a new layer for you, and on top of that layer, build in new pieces of application and so on. They don't have to do that for you. They can get information from you. They can tell you what to do, but you are able to manage your own desk and are able to create that instead of having them do that for you. And then finally, the fact that things were drop downs, the fact that we had these hierarchies in place that we were able to select from, that was a standardized hierarchy. The fact that we had those things in place meant that we had higher quality and easier to access data than we would ever have gotten if we were using spreadsheets or paper or frankly most other platforms. It's a very good way of getting that high quality data. What really matters to me the most is that you walk away recognizing that having this platform makes it easier for the field team and the people in the office who support them to do the right things rather than the wrong ones. With so many of the situations we see right now, it's easier to do the wrong thing, like fill out something on a piece of paper and enter it later. With Fulcrum, it's actually easier to do the right things than the wrong things. So all that in mind, I want to apply this specifically to AI, because we talked about having a complex environment before, and if we think about the spreadsheet under Jenny's desk and the different EAM applications people have, and maybe there's multiple systems that were part of an acquisition, and there's a lot of stuff out there, and we think about how all of our processes might rely on any one of those systems. Without a field platform, what you have is the application of AI to all of these different points. But where do you turn to say, I want to apply AI to my entire process? If you can't get your process and your data in one place, if you don't have a platform that standardizes all of your data and processes, how are you going to apply AI? And that really is important. And I want to show you how it's important specifically by giving you a video. Like I said, I almost never show a video in a presentation, but I'm going to give you a video that will really demonstrate for you what it means to have AI help the field. It's less than 2 minutes long. Let's give it a listen.
Take a look with me at what the future holds when our field worker puts on his smart glasses with
Oops. I should note, by the way, that this video is narrated by the AI herself. Like you'll hear her voice both talking as narrator and talking as the AI in the field. Sorry about that. Let me now restart.
Take a look with me at what the future holds when our field worker puts on his smart glasses with camera and microphone and gets started with his guided AI experience in Fulcrum. I've already guided him to the right pipe. We're here. Okay to snap a picture of the pipe.
Go ahead.
Riprap intact, vegetation sparse, no headwall present.
Yep, log all that.
I can guide the process too. What's the pipe made of?
Looks like ductile iron pipe.
Got it. Next, confirm the diameter and protrusion length.
Diameter 19 inches. Protrusion 31 inches from the slope.
Got them. I'm here to guide the job to completion.
All right, let's go.
Hang on. We're supposed to document the outfall in this inspection too.
Right. This pipe is discharging into a county-owned reservoir. Is that yes or no for outfall?
By definition, that's no. Based on location and GIS data, I agree with your assessment.
Okay. Mark it. But alert the supervisor to double check.
Sites assessed, status log, nothing missed. Next inspection, culvert 2281B, 0.6 miles due east. Here are your driving directions.
Roger that.
Take a look.
All right. So what you just saw is not real. I need to get that right up front. It is a vision for what you can do when you apply AI to your overall field processes. Everything that we're doing there is possible, but not economically practical given current technology and the industry as a whole, not just Fulcrum, but like Sam Altman has to catch up to what we have for a vision here before it's going to be practical. But we believe it's coming. We believe it's going to be here, and we're actively working toward that vision. We'll leave the vision to the side. Go to fulcrumapp.com/vision if you want to hear more. But we'll leave the vision to the side for right now. And instead, I want to leave you with this question. Which of the AIs on the screen could have helped Landon inspect that pipe? The answer is none of them, because none of the AIs that were pictured on the screen actually have insight into Landon's entire process. They don't understand that the process requires them to check the outfall. They don't understand what kind of pipe there is or where the next culvert is. No one AI on the screen here has all of that information. The platform is necessary in order to apply AI to field processes. So that's another requirement. So where does that leave us then? The wolf, this wild wolf, and used AI here too. Yes, I admit it. It's funny. I think it is. The wolf, we've got, is chaotic and reactive, using the paper and spreadsheets, manual reporting. This is what happens to you when you allow things to happen to you as opposed to taking control of them, right? You hope that the team did it right. The working dog, Welsh Corgi, very controlled, very proactive, holding his iPad upside down, but whatever. That provides that single source of the truth for the field. It makes it straightforward to add new technology, and most importantly, it's easier for the team to do the right thing rather than to do the wrong one. So that's what that platform gives you. That's what it means to tame that beast. And what I'd like to do now is open the floor for questions. You can do. There's a questions interface box in the GoToMeeting webinar interface. What I'd like you to do is to enter any questions that you may have in there. While you're doing that, there is a webinar on November 20th, same speaker. I hope I wasn't too terrible. And that one's going to be about future-proofing field data, the business case for a field process platform. Some of the things we talked about here are going to be the same. There'll be less of a focus on environmental specifically. There'll be a bit less of the demo and a bit more on the requirements and the why and the ROI of doing this kind of work in a field platform, but we will be having that on the 20th. So with that, Kurt, do you have any questions available for us from the audience. Actually, I'm sorry, Kurt. You've got. I can look at them here. One of the questions I have is, will a copy of the presentation slides be provided to the participants? Yes, and this will also be. This was recorded. It'll be going online for those of you who want to watch it on demand. No problem there. One question comes from Alina saying, what type of 3D mapping capabilities and visualizations do you have? We are not a replacement for the GIS. What we are frequently doing, generally speaking, is taking the information that we are getting from the field and pushing that out to the GIS so that the GIS can use that information to create those more sophisticated general visualizations. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please come back to me. And related also from Alina, what are the main differences between our platform and ArcGIS? We are not trying to be a GIS platform. GIS starts with the database. It starts with your layers, rows and columns of information with geospatial information associated with them. We are much more, well, and actually let me back up. The GIS is about what is there, right? If you think about a sentence, the GIS contains your nouns. I've got this asset at this location. It was inspected on that date. What the field needs to do is not just capture that information, but also say what needed to happen during that inspection. Who did the inspection? The GIS doesn't care. What was that inspector's last certification? At the time the inspection was done, the GIS doesn't care. Fulcrum manages the field process, and ArcGIS manages the things that are in the field, right? So there is definitely a relationship. We are very tightly integrated with ArcGIS. We work back and forth, but our data is our data in Fulcrum. We are the field platform, and we share that information with ArcGIS, just like ArcGIS shares that information with us about the specific items that are available at those specific locations. I mentioned before not having the GIS team is not going to put in a video walkabout from a safety perspective for your field team. That's because the GIS doesn't need that information. It's just not important to the GIS team. So it's not likely that that would be stored in ArcGIS, but it would be stored in the field platform so that field supervisors could look at those videos to make sure that the walkabouts were being done correctly, for example. I got a question, what does the report printout look like? Let me see if I can quickly share, go back to sharing, resume sharing. You should be seeing my screen now. If I go to, I'm going to view records. You're going to see some junk data here, I think, but view my records. Your report printouts can look like whatever they want to. By the way, because there's a lot of screen activity, it takes longer for this to load up while I'm doing a webinar. Sorry about that. So you can see one of my records here, right? This is my house. Sorry, close that out. The webinar is blocking my screen. Let me do this. All right, now you can see the records themselves. I'm going to go here and say, do a print. When I say print, it's not printing to my printer. It's printing the default report for my application. Be aware that we are using Esri's, because I'm using more than points. I'm using Esri's mapping layer or capability to print out the maps in here. So that does take a little bit more time to be able to get that mapping information on it. But here is the report that comes from that record. You can see it was created today at whatever time. You can see the location. You can choose whichever kinds of maps you want to on here. I've defaulted it to the street map and this resolution, or pardon me, this distance. It's just giving you not very much, but you can see the site information here, right? Huntington Commons, those things filled in. Where's my safety check video? I didn't take one. Hans Gruber. There's the weather, etc. So that's what that report looks like. You can get, and this is exactly what I took during the webinar, right? So the reporting literally is instantaneous. You can get very highly customized maps if you want to. In this case, I'm not going to go into detail on how you do that, but you can get very customized maps as well. The ability to change the basic information like the heading and the, what type of map you want to show up there and that sort of thing can be found in the reports section here, where I can edit my report, and I can say I want to change the name, and I want it to be, you know, the following information on the cover page. I want the base map type to be satellite or terrain and hybrid instead of, or whatever. All the different things are here and available for you within this map builder. And then if you need a more sophisticated one, that'll take a little bit more doing, but that can be done as well. I am at the top of the hour. I'm going to check and see if there's anything else that I need to add. If we did not get to your question today, I will try to do that before, you know, after this presentation is over. But in the meantime, thank you all very much for attending today. I know there's other stuff you could have done, and you chose to spend it here as well. Please let us know how we did, and thank you very much for your time today.